Today I want to talk about some key steps to getting started in reselling. And you don't have to, if you've already started, that's okay. This might just be a refresher for you. I use stuff like this as a refresher for myself, but we're going to talk about those. Then we're going to get into the details of last week's sales, the 5 worst sales from last week, and then the 5 best sales of last week. Let's get into the details. If it's your first time here, my name is Brian, and I'm a reseller. I sell on eBay and I sell in the everything category. So that's going to be tools, toys, cookware, golf clubs, you name it. You're going to see a good example of that in the 5 worst and 5 best sales this week. But yeah, and I make YouTube videos. So thanks for joining me. Today I wanted to start off by talking about like 4 different, what I would say are kind of like maybe pillars or foundations of having a reselling business, and I'll get into the details of each of the 4 topics. So the first one's going to be having a goal. So you don't have, goals are different for different people, and it's really up to you on how granular you want to get. I would say the more granular you get, the more chance of success you have if you're getting down into the steps of how many items you want to list, what's your dollar value that you want to list per day, what kind of revenue do you want to get in a year, and how much do you need per week in order to do that. Myself, I have it broken down into how many listings I want to have. I'm working towards that. How many items I want to list per day, and then my net pre-tax profit for the year, and how that all divides out into profit per item sales. So that's something I'm actively working towards. It's something I'm not going to get there in 30 days or probably even 60 days. It's probably going to take about a year before I'm really up to that level. I'm working into it. So a goal shouldn't be something that and I am setting a time limit. So this is stuff I'm looking for to be by the end of 2025, and that I'm like at an annualized rate, if that makes sense. So I might not be at my sales goal by the end of 2025, but if by the time I get to the end of the year, my sales are growing enough to where the number I'm getting to is annualized into that goal, that makes sense to me. I hope that doesn't confuse anybody, but I don't intend on being to my full goal by the end of the year, but I want to be trending to that goal, I guess is what I'm saying. I want to be trending to that goal. So, and yours doesn't have to be super specific. It might just be, I want to make, I want to sell 5 things a month, or I want to make any extra money that I can whenever I can, and I don't care how much it is. I just want to make some extra money. But I'd still encourage you to write something down. I think writing it down really helps solidify what you're trying to do, and it makes it harder to stray away from what you're doing as a reseller. So that's number 1, is just deciding what your goal is with reselling. It doesn't have to be a grand lofty goal. Just be selling $1,000 a year. It can be whatever, but it's your goal. Everybody's goals are different. That's thing number 1. Number 2 is being organized. And you might look at some of this mess back here and go, what are you talking about, Brian? I took it's called a DISC assessment. It's a professional assessment. You go through a battery of questions and you answer them all. And they ask you a lot of different questions, or same questions in different ways, to figure out how you're answering them and how your mind works and all that kind of stuff. And when I got my assessment back, it told me something that I already knew. I just never seen a number, but it said I'm a 2 out of 10 on organization, which makes complete sense to me. So since I knew that, every time I'd get a new job, or a new boss, I should say, I worked for the same company for several years, I say, tell me about yourself. And I say, the first thing I'm going to tell you is I'm a 2 out of 10 on organization. And they just kind of stop, say, I stay pretty organized, but it takes me 5 times the amount of mental capacity and willpower to stay organized than somebody who's naturally highly organized. So I have to work a lot harder at it to keep everything organized and, keep things flowing. So So being organized is tough for me. I'll just say that right up front. But there's different types of organization. So whenever you're a reseller, I think one of the biggest critical steps to being organized is when you're making money, setting aside revenue, the revenue that you get from eBay, and set aside a chunk of it. You could be a third to be safe, or 25%. I'm not a tax professional, so I'm not going to say you have to have this amount set aside. But set aside money to be able to pay your taxes. You don't want to get caught at the end of the year owing a bunch of money and not have it because you've spent all the money on inventory or whatever, on vacations. Or it's great to make the extra money. Just make sure you're prepared to pay the taxes for that come the end of the year on your income. Another thing to keep organized is your inventory. Now, if you're only maybe having 5 or 10 items for sale at a time, it's probably not as difficult. You could probably put everything in a couple of boxes in your closet or garage or wherever you keep your inventory. But if you're going to scale up to maybe 100 items or more, I would highly suggest you do some kind of organizational system. It might be hard to see, but I've got labels back here on all these bins. I've got labels on all my bins over here, over here, over here. And then I've got SKU numbers on my pots and pans and on my clothing. So on some items, I actually have a SKU number for clothing where I have, a couple 100 pieces and boxes over here. And then a lot of other stuff, I just put one bin number. I might have one same bin number on 20 different items because I have 20 items in that box. But it narrows down my search, so I'm not searching all over the place trying to find a specific item. I've definitely been there where I've been looking around for hours trying to find a $15 item. And by the time it's all said and done, I'm like, well, I'm not making any money on that item. I just spent a ton of time looking for it. And I think there's maybe once, I don't think there was 2 times, maybe once or maybe it might have been twice. I've actually lost an item, couldn't find it at all, had to apologize and cancel a sale. I haven't done that in years, so, but it's something that at almost all costs, I try to avoid that. I did lose an item about 6 months ago. I lost a game board, couldn't find it for the life of me. And to save from canceling the order, because I didn't want it to hit my metrics, I actually bought one from another seller on eBay and had it shipped to that person's house. And I just sent him a message. I said, I'm so sorry. I couldn't find the board, but I purchased another one. I'm having it shipped to you at, there's no additional cost, but it's on its way. So whenever they see it come from somebody else, it didn't confuse them. But, so staying organized is big. I work in 150 square feet. This is a 15 by 10 storage unit. So staying organized for me is like an ongoing thing. It's not something I can just wait and do it once a month. I'm constantly having to reshuffle boxes around, reorganizing especially on clothing as stuff sells. I'm condensing the bins so I can free up space to put in more clothes. It's just all sorts of stuff. Resorting pots and pans as I'm buying stuff and restacking and all that kind of stuff. But staying organized in your business will go a long, long way to help ease heartache. That's for sure. So that's number 2. Number 3, reinvest in your business. So as you're going along and you're making money, don't feel like you can't level up a little bit. I'm not saying go hog wild and just go buy tons of cool cameras and big, huge lighting setups and all that kind of stuff. You don't have to do that. There's plenty of ways for low budget, everything essentially, to sell on eBay. So, something to think about is making sure you have ample shipping supplies. So make sure you have tape on hand, you have stretch wrap on hand if you're using that, you have bubble wrap on hand, and I would say whatever you're using, but then have a backup, an extra roll of bubble wrap, you have extra rolls of tape, you have extra of those things, boxes. I get a lot of free boxes, but I'm also not scared to buy boxes. if I'm running low on small boxes or medium boxes or whatever it is I'm running low on, I'll go buy them retail to have it on hand to cover myself until I get more boxes of that size for free or very, very low cost. So you don't want to run out of the stuff you're using to ship the products to your customers, delay shipments, that sort of stuff. Technology, I think, is something that's great to invest in. And specifically for when I'm thinking of technology, I'm really thinking of like a thermal printer. Like I bought one to really speed up my label printing. It's Bluetooth. It's small. It's easy to use. It takes the right size label for shipping, and they're fairly inexpensive. So you can get into one with labels for about $70. That's very reliable. So there's stuff like that. And then there's, it could be some software. Like I use Flipwise. I think it's $20 a month for the version that I'm using, the number of items that are listed. So it keeps track of all my tax information, all my, my profit, that kind of stuff. You can put your mileage in there, all your expenses for hard goods, cleaning supplies, that kind of stuff. So it's another thing that I'm investing in to really help safeguard my business, keep track of everything, keep it organized, really help me. So I'm not trying to keep track of it in an Excel spreadsheet or something like that. And then once you're organized, you're reorganizing, just making sure you're keeping everything. Like after I get done shipping a lot of stuff, I've got to go through and I've got stuff kind of flung about from shipping. So then I have to clean up, reorganize my stuff, and get ready. That's something I'm usually doing at the end of my day to set myself up for success for the next day. So whenever I walk in, I'm ready to go. I'm ready to ship. Ready if I'm shooting a video, I've got space for that. So just reorganizing, I think, is very important too, to just kind of keep it up, basically, the organization. And then the fourth thing is don't stop learning. Just hone your craft over and over and over. It's not, you don't get there. It's not a place you get to is being an expert at reselling. It's a journey that you're just always on. There's so much good free information out there. There's so many people on YouTube talking about stuff that sells. They're comping things. They're giving you information. And then there's eBay, which is an amazing tool because you can see sold items. You can go through and literally pick a category, dig into it, look at available, look at sold, start drilling into brands, sizes, colors, all those sorts of things. And it's going to tell you exactly what's selling, how much it's selling for, the styles. There's so much information there. I've got an example that I was working on. If I can figure out how to pop in a screen recording, I'm not super savvy at that, but if I can figure out how to do that, I'm going to pop it in right here and give you a look at it. Okay, so we're just going to search men's jeans. It's a very broad search term, so we're going to search that, and we're going to see here that we have 1.3 million results available. And then we're going to look at sold comps. So let's do that. Scroll down here and see what's sold. So 410,000. So it's a little less than 33%. So it's about 31%, 32%. So there is about 100 or so days supply of jeans for sale on eBay right now, just men's jeans. So from here, I want to narrow down my results. So I'm going to look at waist sizes and some popular ones. Smaller sizes don't do as well. 30 is even a little on the small side, but we're going to look and see how many results you get for a waist size of 30. 41,000. So then we're going to go look at 32, 75,000, much better results. Then look at 34. I'm skipping the in-between sizes because they're not as popular. 34, 91,000, so that's significant. Let's look at 36 and 73,000. So we're back up there. It's pretty good. And then if we look at 38, we're kind of going back down. So that 32, 34, 36 is really the sweet spot. So I'm going to look at those 32, 34, 36, and I'm going to take 38 out of the mix. That's 220,000. So that's over half of the sold comps right there. Well over half the sold comps. And then whenever we scroll down here to inseam, you can see the quantities here. So 30-inch, 32-inch is actually the best selling inseam size. 69,000 sold comps, almost 51,000 on 30-inch. So I'm gonna do 30 and 32. So now we're looking at a pool of sold comps in the right sizes, the most popular sizes to see prices. Now we're going to scroll down here and look at brands. And you can see how it breaks out. There's a lot of brands in here, but these are all your top selling brands over here. So there is so many. You can see, I mean, tons of brands. Here's your most popular. So Levi's just blows everybody out of the water with 35,000 sold comps. And then you've got Wrangler down here next with 6,000 sold comps. And then you're going up to, well, Lucky brand. This is important because Lucky brand is something you can find at TJ Maxx, but you can also find high-end Luckies, like from the Lucky's, stores. So I'm just going to start with Levi's. It's the most popular. That way, whenever I'm out shopping, so I've got 32,000 plus results. So that's just about 8% of all jeans sales. You saw those brands. All men's jeans sales are Levi's. And you can see what's selling here. So we've got some rare turnip, tan dye turnip plant paste. Those are funky. I've never seen those, but those are 501s. I don't know why they're showing up. Those are 27 by 32s, maybe because the 32 can seem. So we've got straight fit. I did this so loose. Those are tapered, straight, slim straight, relaxed straight, baggy, slim boot cut, which is a bigger cut, straight leg, relaxed fit. So if it was me, I'd be looking for straight leg and relaxed fit. And then you want to be looking at, you've got, so that one doesn't even put you got 501s. That doesn't put the style. 569s, 541s, 511s, 513s. There's 501s again, 559s, 501s. 501 is the tried and true from Levi's for sure. There's 559s, 505s. I've seen a lot of 559s again. There's 505s, 514s. There's more 505s. There's a 501, 505s, 505s, 505. So more 505s. There's a bunch right there. So, excuse me, if I was just starting to look at jeans and I wanted to just look for something in particular, I would look for size 32, 34, and 36 waist in a 30 and 32 inch inseam. Levi's, 501s, 505s, 559s is the thing I would look for whenever I walked up to the jeans aisle first. I saw a few 511s. Some more 505s, 559s, 501s, 569s, there's more 505s, a bunch of those. So that's an easy way you can do this with anything. You can do this with shirts, you can do it with hats, you can do it with anything. You just start narrowing down your search to find what yields the best results, the most results
on eBay, so you have the best chance of winning whenever you're picking something up. Then you're looking at the sold prices, and now you know what you need to pay for that. You want to back that out. Looks like somebody had a clearance sale right there. You want to back that out, you know, quite a bit. You want to probably divide that by 4 or 5 so that you have margin to play with whenever you're selling those, because of the fees and all that kind of stuff, and then you're going to do your plus shipping. So, all right, let's jump back to it.
But so there's that. There's YouTube. There's eBay. There's just other resellers. If you're at the post office box, at the P.O. box or post office, you're probably going to run into other resellers. I run into other resellers all the time. Just, chat a little bit. Hey, how you doing? What you selling? And I meet other retailers at the thrift store. I've seen them at garage sales, just all over the place. And a lot of resellers love talking about their business because it's a little bit lonely sometimes. And they love, having somebody else to talk about it with, if I can get those words out, that really understands what they're doing. They're not crazy for out there buying used stuff at garage sales and selling it online. So there's just having those relationships and building those relationships is huge as well. So all of that just really helps. Looking at learning what is most available to you locally is huge as well. Like around me, we have you go into a thrift store, if you're like looking for jeans, there is almost an endless supply of Wrangler jeans. Now, finding the right ones to buy, you don't buy all of them, even though I think it's the second best seller in the jeans category as a brand on eBay. They don't all sell. You got to buy certain styles. So again, that's where, now that I know I have an endless supply of Wranglers, eBay can tell me which Wranglers to buy. And now whenever I walk in, I'm looking for key things on those pants before I'll even take them off the rack to see if the condition's good enough to pick them up. So just don't stop learning. Again, there's tons of information out there, and you're going to learn a lot as you're progressing in your business. I learn so much all the time. I don't even know. I'm trying to think of a good example, but I don't know if there is a good example. I don't know. I'm just learning a lot all the time. I learn new brands. So I've been doing a lot of clothing. I've been learning a lot of new brands that I've never heard of before. I haven't really heard about on YouTube even, or just I'm running across brand new brands that have value to them. So I'm, learning that, which has been pretty good for me. But yeah, that's the end of my soapbox speech. I don't know if that helps anybody. It's probably more for me than anything. Just reminding myself of those important 4 kind of like core pillars to running a reselling business. I probably missed something. If there's something you think I missed, drop that down in the comments below. I did forget something on the reinvesting part. Don't forget to reinvest in your inventory. Whenever you're selling stuff and your business is picking up, if you buy 3 things and you sell 3 things, don't go buy 3 things. Go buy 6 things, 7 things, 8 things. As you're sharpening your skills on the right things to buy, buying more things that are the right things is going to pay off more for you. And that's just going to be a snowball. It's just going to keep it growing and growing and growing. And don't be afraid if you're using the right information to take a calculated risk. Twice in the past week, on last Thursday night, I went and picked up a set of pots and pans from a guy on Facebook Marketplace. I paid him $150 for the set. I had to replace some of the handle hardware, some of the screws holding the handles on. I spent $6 putting some new screws in, which was a surprise to me, but it's okay. I knew what to do. Put in a few new screws, got them listed up on eBay, sold the set in 48 hours for $460. It's a calculated risk. I knew the brand. I didn't see that exact thing, type of set that was listed or had sold, and I was approximating what I thought I could sell it for. I really thought I was going to sell it for about 400, and then I just shot high and I sold it. So that was a calculated risk. I'm reinvesting in my business. I was at a garage sale last Friday, picked up a set of junior golf clubs for $50. A lot of people that are looking at that might just pass on it before they even comp them, because it's a little bit high for a junior set of golf clubs, especially garage sale pricing. But I looked them up and looked like they'd probably be worth it. I tried to negotiate. They weren't open to negotiating. I paid the full $50. I listed them, and in 24 hours, no, not 24 hours, like 4 hours. In 4 hours, I sold them for full asking price. I paid $50. I sold them for $135 in 4 hours. So taking calculated risks like that, reinvesting in your business will pay off if you're doing your research, and it's a calculated risk. You're doing some research beforehand. So I wanted to add that in there. I think that's important as well. Don't get scared of reinvesting in inventory for your business. Now that's the end of the soapbox speech. Had to add that in there. Now we can get into what sold last week. It was a pretty good week. It was not as good as the week before, but it was still a pretty good week. I sold 22 items last week in total. That was $1,195.64 in total revenue. That breaks out to $913.70 in item sales revenue and $281.94 in shipping revenue. Last week I made about $21 on shipping, which means, I took in $21 more in revenue than I spent in shipping labels. So on average, I'm making about $10 to $20 per week on shipping, which helps offset the fees that are associated with the shipping, all the packing materials and all that kind of stuff. So last week, my net or my pre-tax profit margin after cost of goods, platform fees, promotion fees, everything all in was $563.82, which was a 47% profit margin, which is awesome. Last week I was at a 45% profit margin. My profit margin went up to 47%. My goal is 45%, which means I exceeded my goal, which just had me over the moon. I was so excited about being past my profit margin goal. The number one source last week for profit was thrift stores. So 11 or half, 50% of the items that I sold came from thrift stores. Those 11 items drove 46% of the profit for the week, which was pretty phenomenal. I had 14 promoted sales. So those were sold on promoted listings. That was 64% of the items sold were on a promoted listing. Funnily enough, I sold 64% of my sales last week were on promoted listings. It was just a different number because I had more sales, but same percentage. 11 or 50% of the items were sold on offers. So that may have been an offer I sent out to the buyer or they sent to me because I have a best offer turned on. And then I had 6 double dips. So 27% of the sales were sold on both a promoted listing and on an offer, which is fine. I have it built into the margins to do that. So that doesn't bother me at all. So overall, a pretty good week. I am perfectly happy with the way last week went and just gonna keep it growing. Now we can look at the 5 worst sales from last week. I did lose money on an item. It was so close too, but I did end up losing money. It was kind of a bummer. So let's take a look at the 5th worst sale of the week. The 5th worst sale was this Willie Nelson Igloo koozie, metal koozie. I picked it up at a thrift store for $4.30. Originally, I bought it for myself. I thought it was super cool. I didn't see any listed or sold. And there's a certain type of sports drink I like to drink in a plastic bottle that's about the size of a can. I was like, oh, I'll just buy that and I can keep the drink cold and all day. or whenever I'm drinking it. Except for the bottle was too big to fit in there, and I don't drink anything out of aluminum cans at home, so it's like, bummer. So I just threw it up on eBay. So paid $4.30, sold it for $10.57 on an offer for a $4.40 pre-tax profit or a 27% profit margin. Adios, Willie. There's not a road trip I go on with my family. I assigned a cost of $30 for the woods, or for the irons, sorry, for the irons, and put them up for sale, I think for $175, and I sent out an offer for $158.20 plus shipping. And when I sent the offer out, it was like, I think it said 22 interested buyers. I was like, holy moly, like, surely this is going to trigger a sale. And about an hour later, it did. So paid $30, sold them for $158.20 plus shipping for a $107.30 pre-tax profit or a 61% profit margin. It is so easy to ship golf clubs. If you think golf clubs are big and hard to ship and what am I going to do, don't stress out about that. If they have value and you can get them for the right price, I would encourage you to give them a shot. I did a video shipping those exact golf clubs that I'll link it down below if you want to watch it. But it is it's so easy to ship golf clubs. It really is. And it's fairly inexpensive. You might look at them and think they're big and heavy, and I think those went to Oregon or Washington, and the shipping was like $14. It's not much. So I ship those FedEx home delivery and do the dimensional weight shipping. It's easy to pack, easy to ship, and inexpensive. So, and that is it for this week's video looking back on last week's sales. I hope I didn't ramble on too long. I appreciate you sticking with me. If you have any questions or comments, leave those down in the comment section below, and I'll make sure and get back to you. If you're still here, YouTube thinks you might want to take a look at this video. I think it's going to be right here. We'll see. And until next time, have a great day. She's like, if we're going to have a glass pitcher, that's not really the color I'd like to get. It's like, no problem. I'll just sell it on eBay. So I've had this one for about 4 months, probably 4 or 5 months. And finally, somebody sent me an offer. I took it for $10 for a $3.61 pre-tax profit or a 19% profit margin. I was glad to get that one out the door. It was so big. I kept worrying that I was going to bump the rack and it was going to fall over and break. Or luckily it didn't, but I got it shipped out the door. And then the worst sale of the week is this little Corning blue cornflower. It's a little casserole dish. I picked it up at Goodwill for $3.25, and I ended up taking an offer of $5 because it's been sitting for so long. I don't even remember what I had it listed for. I think like $12.89. I really thought I was going to sell it at that. I did comp that one in the store. I thought I'd sell it for more. I probably could have if I had a lid, but Goodwill is pretty good about, they'll take the Corning dishes and put a price on them and set them on the shelf, and then they'll have a separate shelf full of lids for the same price as the dish. Instead of selling them together as a unit, they'll take them apart and sell the pieces separate, which drives me nuts. But got it out the door for a negative 41-cent profit, pre-tax profit, or a negative 3% profit margin. So at least I didn't lose by much, 41 cents, but glad to have it out the door. I actually had to check because somebody sent me an offer and I was like, do I even have that? And I did. It was right there where it was supposed to be. I just didn't remember seeing it recently, but it's kind of tucked away behind other stuff. Yeah, so that was it. That's the worst sales of the week. Nothing too horrible, so I can't really complain about too much of that. Learned a lesson on that little Corning dish, that's for sure. And now let's look at the best 5 sales of the week. I always say this, but there's some cool stuff in here. There's a funny story too. The fifth one, actually. So the fifth best sale of the week. Talk about staying organized. This is a good example right here. So this is a 4-piece set of Royal Prestige by West Bend. West Bend in the like 80s, 70s, and 80s private labeled so many brands of cookware, which is why they all had very similar rims, lids. Really the thing that differed were the handles. They all had different shapes of handles. Other than that, a lot of the cookware looked the same, had the same kind of like calligraphy on the front of it, inscribed. You know, it all looked very similar, just different brands. And so it said, Royal Prestige, made in the USA by WB. If you see that on cookware, WB, that's West Bend. And they make their own brand too. So I got a skillet at Goodwill, and long story, but I ended up getting it was missing a handle. I got a handle put on it. And I get back and I was like, man, I wonder what to price this at, because I think I've sold some Royal Prestige here recently, because I remember that name. And I looked through my sold, couldn't see anything. Looked through my active, couldn't see anything. Went to my shelf and I found 2 pieces sitting there with SKU numbers on them, but for some reason I never listed them. I don't know why. I must have accidentally deleted the pictures off my phone after listing, whenever I was listing other stuff, but I hadn't audited my pot and pan inventory in quite a while, so I didn't notice that they weren't listed. They've just been sitting there. It worked out. I put them together as a set, those 2 pieces with the skillet. They were just saucepans with no lids, and then I had a skillet with a lid. Did it as a 4-piece set. I've got $18 in the whole thing, the whole set. Sold it for $79.89 plus shipping. So that's a $49.08 pre-tax profit, or a 50% profit margin. So I had sold another set of Royal Prestige the day before that, or 2 days before that, but it was made by Echo. So Royal Prestige was made by a couple different makers. But yeah, I couldn't believe that. I was like, I've got these saucepans sitting over here. I probably could have sold them five different times, and I hadn't, because I never listed them. They're just sitting there on the rack with SKU numbers on them. Oh man, talk about staying organized. That's a side effect of my 2 out of 10 right there. And then the 4th best sale of the week is this Electrolux hose. I just sold this past weekend. I picked up a vacuum at a thrift store. They had it whenever we walked in. It was like right by the front counter, all put together. I asked if I could test it. She said sure. Plugged it in, everything worked fine. And I said, it doesn't have a price on it. I said, how much do you want for the vacuum? And she goes, $50. And I was thinking about it, but it had only been like 3 seconds. Like there was no time had passed, because I'm thinking in my head, okay, if I sell this part for this. And honestly, if she had just stopped there and walked away, I probably would have paid $50 for it. I may have negotiated down a little bit, but actually I've never actually negotiated at a thrift store, so I probably wouldn't have. I would have either paid the $50 or I'd have walked away. So she said, how about $50? And I'm looking at it, and like I said, like 3 seconds later, she goes, $25. It's like, I guess they just wanted this thing out of the store. And I was like, yeah, I'll do it for $25. And so I took it apart, got it all cleaned up. Cleaning up these big Electrolux vacuums is not really difficult, and there's really 4 main pieces you break it down into, and this hose is one of them. So I put a cost of $8.50 on the hose itself and sold it for $74.89 plus shipping, for a $53.66 pre-tax profit, or a 63% profit margin. That was a pretty good. I've paid more for the canister vacuums. It did take a little bit of more cleaning than some that I've bought, but yeah, it wasn't horrible. And then the 3rd best sale of the week was the canister from the same vacuum. So it was the Electrolux. It was the Epic 8000 series. So I sold the canister. I had a cost assigned to it of $8.50, and I sold the canister on an offer that I sent out for $82.70 for a pre-tax profit of $57.97, or a 52% profit margin. And when you sell it for more and you paid the same and your profit's higher, it seems silly the profit margin be lower, but the shipping was a lot more. So when you take into account the shipping revenue and all that, and how that works, plays out into the profit margin, that's why it's like that. All right. Oh, so there we go. The second best sale of the week is the other set of Royal Prestige, the 7-piece Royal Prestige by Echo. So, man, that one, I did a separate video on that one because both of them actually had some broken pieces or missing pieces to the pots and pans, but they're desirable enough and they're good enough pieces that people will still buy them. So the 7-piece set, I was all in on it for $19.25, and I sold it for $119.89 plus shipping. So that was a $73.79 pre-tax profit, or a 52% profit margin. That one was a combination of, most of it came from an estate sale, and then the steamer insert I bought at Goodwill. The steamer insert had 2 handles. I took one of the handles off, and I put it on that skillet that was missing a handle. So the skillet was complete in that other set, and then this one had the steamer insert with one handle, and on the other side it just had the screw, so somebody could buy a replacement handle. Or it's a steamer insert. I mean, you could literally just you could just grab the screw and the handle and use it that way if you wanted to. But I was very, very clear on it, and I put it in the pictures. I want to make sure that whenever there's something like that, a flaw or something that's odd about a product like that, I'm being very clear about what I'm selling, so that people don't get it and go, oh, you were like hiding that in the back and I didn't see that. I could have spun it around in every picture and the angles and never showed that it was missing a handle and just rolled the dice. But that is a horrible way to do business. Just do not do that. Be, overly clear about any condition issues on items so that the buyers know exactly what they're getting. That was a great sale. That was a good one. I was so excited. I love selling sets of cookware. And then the number one item was this set of tailor-made irons I picked up. I did a short video on this as well a few weeks ago. I was at a garage sale, and I walked up to buy this little statue, advertising statue, which I've sold. But when I walked up to pay for it, the lady goes, hey, you asked about those golf clubs this morning, right? And I said, I didn't. I did not do that. And she goes, oh, you look like the guy who was asking about golf clubs. And I said, that wasn't me. And I said, do you have any golf clubs? Because there was none out there in the garage or on the driveway. And her husband was standing right behind her, and he goes, I do have golf clubs. I went and dug them out of the shed after that guy asked about it this morning. And he goes, you want to take a look at them? I was like, sure, I'll take a look at them. So he never brought them into the garage. I guess he was setting them back there in case the guy came back. I don't know. But so we walked out of the garage into like his backyard, essentially the side yard, and just looked through them. And he had a set of these tailor-made irons. Had a tailor-made driver, a couple Cleveland woods, and a couple other irons, wedges, and putter. Had a ping blade putter. Just a handful of different things that weren't worth reselling. The bag wasn't worth reselling. In fact, I put it on the curb for free. It was in pretty rough shape. I assigned a cost of $30 for the woods, or for the irons, for the irons, and put them up for sale, I think for $175, and I sent out an offer for $158.20 plus shipping. And when I sent the offer out, it was like, I think it said 22 interested buyers. I was like, holy moly. Like, surely this is going to trigger a sale. And about an hour later, it did. So paid $30, sold them for $158.20 plus shipping for a $107.30 pre-tax profit, or a 61% profit margin. It is so easy to ship golf clubs. If you think golf clubs are big and hard to ship and what am I going to do, don't stress out about that. If they have value and you can get them for the right price, I would encourage you to give them a shot. I did a video shipping those exact golf clubs that I'll link it down below if you want to watch it. But it's so easy to ship golf clubs. It really is. And it's fairly inexpensive. You might look at them and think they're big and heavy, and I think those went to Oregon or Washington, and the shipping was like $14. It's not much. So I ship those FedEx home delivery and do the dimensional weight shipping. It's easy to pack, easy to ship, and inexpensive. So, and that is it for this week's video looking back on last week's sales. I hope I didn't ramble on too long. I appreciate you sticking with me. If you have any questions or comments, leave those down in the comment section below, and I'll make sure and get back to you. If you're still here, YouTube thinks you might want to take a look at this video. I think it's going to be right here. We'll see. And until next time, have a great day.